Despite being Brazil's most renowned psychologist, today he steps over the window ledge of a 100-meter-high skyscraper, preparing to jump. To save him, the authorities have deployed police, crisis negotiators, and even helicopters. Yet, after 4 hours of intense confrontation, the experts are the ones who end up having a nervous breakdown.
Você vai desistir?
O que eu podia ter feito eu fiz. Estamos há horas nisso.
Mas o senhor é psicólogo. Convence o sujeito a não pular.
Ele é psicólogo também. E dos renomados.
Just as everyone stands helpless, a disheveled-haired man steps into the crowd. It looks like he wants to go up and give it a try. The man ignores a homeless person nearby, simply swiping the burger from the homeless man's hand before stepping into the elevator straight to the top floor. At this moment, standing on the edge of the building, Julio has already closed his eyes, ready to calmly welcome death. But suddenly, a figure silently climbs over the ledge and sits steadily beside him. This sudden intrusion gives Julio a massive fright. As they talk, the stranger even friendly offers the burger, asking Julio if he wants a bite. Julio can't help but curse, calling him a lunatic. However, the most stunned ones are still the police. They haven't even had time to rescue Julio when another person suddenly appears. The stranger, however, tells them not to worry and to leave this to him. He promises that if Julio jumps, he will notify them immediately. Hearing this, the police dare not act rashly and can only helplessly retreat. Then, the man proceeds to enjoy his meal as if nothing is happening. Seeing that Julio remains silent for a long time, the man seems to lose patience.
Pula aí. Não é isso que você quer? Mas não pensa muito, não, hein? Vai por mim. Se você quer se arrebentar, pula logo.
Julio feels no fluctuation in his heart. As one of Brazil's top psychologists, he naturally sees through this clumsy provocation at a glance. So the man switches strategies, asking Julio if he knows that every 4 seconds, someone in the world wants to commit suicide, and he is just the next one. But the interesting thing is, the man adds, every person who commits suicide becomes a murderer.
O que você está me chamando? Assassino. Ele se mata primeiro, claro, mas ele acaba matando também todos aqueles que ficam vivos. A família, os filhos.
Cala a boca!
Hearing this, Julio finally breaks down. He pulls a crumpled photo from his pocket. It is of his son, the person he loves most, the one he feels most guilty towards, and the very reason he is standing here right now. Seeing this, the man immediately presses on. He asks Julio to search his soul. In all the books he has read in his lifetime, has he ever seen one that says death ends everything? And what kind of father would use such a cruel method to leave a shadow on his loved ones that can never be erased? The man's questions come one after another, striking Julio's heart like the blows of a chisel, yet he cannot answer a single one. Furious, he shouts at the man.
Você não sabe o que eu perdi!
E você não sabe o que eu já perdi.
Julio is rendered speechless. Yes, who could have lost more than someone living on the streets? Seeing that Julio has finally calmed down, the man also becomes peaceful. He says he admires Julio's courage. Jumping from here might buy a moment of peace, but ultimately, what awaits him is nothing but a lonely grave, and the pain will not dissipate with his departure.
Querem matar a sua torre. Mas se você realmente quer fazer isso, vá em frente. Mas essa será uma decisão sua.
After speaking, the man turns and walks aside. Julio slowly spreads his arms, ready to bid a final farewell to this world. Fortunately, the rationality of survival finally conquers the struggle of pain. Coming back to his senses, Julio can't help but be curious about this man's true identity. But the man just smiles mysteriously. He claims to be a brother to Madman, a dream seller. He specializes in selling things money can't buy. He sells courage to the insecure, confidence to the fearful, and a comma to those on the brink of collapse, allowing them to continue writing their lives. Hearing this, Julio can't help but ask, what can be sold to someone like him who is bent on dying? One sentence awakens the dreamer. Indeed, life is never a period that is simply black or white, nor is it an irrevocable exclamation mark. Even if the road ahead is a mess, a comma can make a paused story continue and restart a shattered life. No one expected that this top Brazilian psychologist would ultimately be pulled back from the brink of death by a man who looked like a beggar. When they walk downstairs together, the media, having waited for a long time, immediately swarm forward. But the man seems to have no desire to be the center of attention and quickly walks away from the crowd. It turns out this man's identity is indeed extraordinary. He was once a super billionaire ranked 3rd on the Forbes list, owning over 200 companies spanning fashion, aviation, and banking. He is a figure who truly stood at the top of the pyramid. Why he ended up on the streets remains a mystery to this day. This movie, titled The Dream Seller, is absolutely a soul-healing masterpiece that everyone must watch in their lifetime. If you have been busy these past 2 years but still live a life full of scars, please be sure to patiently finish this story. It very well may change your life. Although Julio has temporarily given up the idea of suicide, the root of the problem has not been solved. So, he decides to follow this so-called dream seller, wandering the city to sell dreams to others, hoping that perhaps one day he can find a way to redeem himself. After dark, they arrive at a corner abandoned by the city lights. This is what the dream seller calls home. More accurately, the whole world is his residence. In Julio's eyes, this place is utterly dilapidated, full of trash everywhere. Even the drinking water is muddy river water. There is absolutely no quality of life to speak of. But strangely, he sees no sadness on anyone's face here. Instead, they laugh heartily from time to time. Julio is completely baffled by this. However, that night, he surprisingly sleeps soundly. But now their stomachs are a bit empty, so the three of them go out together to find food. Passing a newsstand, Julio accidentally discovers that his suicide attempt has made the headlines. He instantly realizes his career is completely ruined.
Si todo precisa estar bem ao nosso redor para termos pouco de alegria, então somos escravos das circunstâncias.
However, at this moment, Julio can't hear any comforting words. Instead, he becomes increasingly emotional. In Julio's mind, he has already suffered complete social death. All his former glory and achievements are wiped away by this news report. Mestre doesn't bother wasting his breath. Instead, he takes them to a funeral. At the scene, everyone is immersed in endless grief, but Mestre can't stand it. He walks straight up to the crowd and questions why they are so sad.
O velório pode ser ambiente de lágrimas, mas deve ser acima de tudo ambiente de elogios, de recordações. Então eu peço a vocês, me contem quem é esse homem. Declarem o significado dele na vida de vocês.
This leaves Julio dumbfounded, unable to guess Mestre's intentions at all. Just then, someone in the crowd slowly speaks up, saying the deceased had a stubborn temper but a delicate and soft heart, a man who dared to act and take responsibility. Then the deceased's wife chokes back sobs as she speaks, saying he was a responsible husband. Even though his business failed repeatedly, he could always pull himself together again. The deceased's son cries, stating that he was not only his father but his best friend.
Tenho certeza que seu pai, se pudesse, diria: não desista dos seus sonhos, meu filho. Não tenha medo do caminho. Tenha medo de não caminhar.
Mestre's words seem like encouragement to the boy, but in reality, he is also encouraging himself. Then Mestre walks to the body, gently stroking the forehead. It is clear they were once very close friends. Gradually, the mourners stop crying and start opening up, sharing various funny stories and warm moments from the deceased's life. The heavy atmosphere in the room is instantly swept away. At this moment, Julio finally understands Mestre's well-intentioned efforts. In this life, fame and wealth are just passing clouds. The sincere emotions between people are the things most worth cherishing. But this also makes Julio increasingly curious about Mestre's identity. As a psychologist, he easily recognizes that Mestre just used the Socratic method, a philosophical technique of deep inquiry using layered dialogue and questions to expose contradictions in the other party's cognition, guiding people to explore inner truths and reflect on their own value. But Mestre doesn't answer directly. Instead, he tells Julio to first figure out who he is. If he can't figure it out, Mestre is willing to find the answer on the road with him. With that, Mestre turns and leaves, but before they go far, they see a little boy being chased by police. It turns out the boy stole an old lady's handbag. He flees in panic, but he can't escape Mestre, who knows the environment well. Just as the police are about to arrest the boy, Mestre raises his hand to stop them, turning instead to question the elderly woman whose bag was stolen.
A senhora tem certeza disso? Ele roubou minha bolsa. O primeiro a ser beneficiado pelo perdão é aquele que perdoa, não o perdoado. Ele tem a idade para ser seu neto, não tem?
Hearing Mestre mention her grandson, the old lady's eyes immediately soften, and the boy hangs his head in shame. A moment later, he actively steps forward, returns the handbag to the old lady, and sincerely apologizes to her. In the end, the old lady decides to end things with kindness. She even generously gives him a banknote, hoping to help the boy through his current difficulties. Perhaps in this world full of suffering, the biggest predicament in a person's heart is the hurdle they cannot overcome internally. Yet, Mestre awakens the boy's conscience with just a few words, saving a soul about to stray from the right path. To repay this kindness, the boy uses that money to treat everyone to a full meal. Subsequently, he naturally joins Mestre's team. Although they don't have a clear destination, they all know very well that this is a road leading to self-redemption. Just as the four of them are walking side by side, a car suddenly rushes violently toward them. Fortunately, everyone reacts quickly and narrowly escapes. Obviously, the target of this car is Mestre, but he is unwilling to say much about it. Instead, he takes them to a nursing home, asking the three of them to improvise with musical instruments to bring joy to the elderly people there. Although they are puzzled, they do as they are told. It's just that these three don't know how to play at all. The terrible melody makes the old people frown. Mestre goes alone to the balcony, where a woman with Alzheimer's sits. She is Mestre's former assistant and his most tacit partner. They once stood together at the top of the world, but now one is delirious, and the other wanders the streets. It makes one sigh at the unpredictability of fate. At night, the four sit on a pedestrian bridge, gazing at the thousands of lights in the distance. Every light represents a household, and every window is filled with different joys and sorrows. Mestre says that one of those lights used to belong to him, but now he can never go back. Then Mestre asks Julio about the reason for his suicide attempt. After an internal struggle, Julio finally reveals the secret buried deep in his heart. Since having his son, Julio gave him the best of everything, pouring all his resources into him, from quality education to professional soccer training. He gave without reservation and naturally expected his son to repay him with the best, but so many barriers between parents and children stem from the parents' obsession with their children's success and the children's rebellious desire for freedom. This misplaced expectation eventually pushed the father and son onto diverging paths, becoming strangers, but Julio seems not to have realized this yet. Prior to this, Mestre often expressed his views in public. Coupled with the video of him saving Julio going viral online, his previous speech clips start receiving renewed attention. At first, people just treated him as a babbling madman, but as time passes, more and more people see the truth in his words. It is precisely these truths, which dare to puncture reality, that touch the interests of capitalists, leading to the malicious retaliation they encountered earlier. And now, Mestre's influence is growing ever larger. People even reverently call him the dream seller, which makes the capitalists increasingly wary. That evening, Mestre holds a speech, as usual. The attendees are mostly corporate managers or small business owners, all desperate for the secret to success. But Mestre chooses a cemetery as the location for the speech, stating that the inscriptions around them are the advice they seek. At first, everyone is dismissive, thinking he is just being mysterious. But immediately after, Mestre fires off a series of pointed questions at them.
Não são você essa elite da sociedade. Então por que tem essa péssima qualidade de vida? Onde está a felicidade que o sistema prometeu para quem atinge o pódio do capitalismo? O segredo do sucesso é conquistar aquilo que o dinheiro não pode comprar.
After the crowd disperses, the cemetery returns to silence. Mestre strokes a tombstone in front of him. It is the one he erected for himself. He has personally experienced the pain of losing everything and knows the taste of despair when falling into the abyss. Therefore, he no longer wishes to see others repeat the same mistakes. He only wants to do everything in his power to redeem those drowning souls struggling in the sea of suffering. However, the storm comes eventually. Just as Mestre and his group prepare to return to their dwelling, a car suddenly approaches from behind, and the people inside fire several shots at them. They hurriedly dive for cover, but in the chaos, someone is injured. Fortunately, the rescue is timely, and the boy is out of danger. Mestre knows his speeches have offended people. To prevent his companions from being implicated further, he hardens his heart and uses the most hurtful words to drive Julio away. However, when Julio returns home, what awaits him is not his wife's comfort, but cold expulsion and scolding. Julio's heart aches as if cut by a knife, and at the same time a vague sense of unease rises within him. He pushes open his son João's door, only to see a messy room that is already empty. It turns out João has run away from home. At this moment, Julio realizes he is not only a failed father, but a failed human being. In a daze, he returns to Mestre's wandering spot, lying on the bed, attempting to escape reality. It turns out that she wants to invite Mestre to take part in an unscripted, unfiltered live program, hoping that his speech can help more people find their way out of hardship. But no matter how Julio persuades him, Mestre shakes his head and refuses.
Já disse que não.
Milhões de pessoas te escutariam. Assim elas te deixariam em paz. Eu te escutei. Você não pode me escutar uma vez que seja?
Você quer saber por que eu subi naquele parapeito?
Porque eu falhei. Na minha arrogância, na minha prepotência, fui incapaz de salvar o meu próprio filho. Você pode, com suas palavras.
As he speaks, Julio's tears can't help but burst forth. Mestre finally agrees. On the day of the live broadcast, he arrives at the studio on time, unaware that this is actually a conspiracy against him. As the broadcast begins, the host introduces Mestre grandly, right off the bat, but Mestre shows no pride. Instead, as usual, he uses warm yet sharp words to guide everyone to recognize reality step by step and be wary of the illusions woven by capital and power. But just as the speech is getting good, the big screen behind him suddenly plays a video that shocks everyone. In the video, Mestre looks ferocious, screaming wildly. It turns out this master sought after by everyone was once confined in a mental hospital. And all of this is a trap carefully planned by the capitalists. They want the public to know that this so-called dream seller is nothing more than a mental patient, thereby negating the correct values he conveys. Because only in this way can they regain control over people's consumption concepts and create crop after crop of inexhaustible resources. At this moment, the host walks onto the stage gloating, mocking Mestre for being mentally ill. This sudden change drags Mestre back into the abyss of those painful memories. Usually eloquent, he cannot say a single word at this moment. Immediately after, the host points the spear at Julio, saying that, as a federal university professor, he actually worships a mental patient as an idol. What does he think now? Julio opens his mouth but cannot utter a word. At this point, Mestre prepares to leave the stage. But just then...
Fala, mestre.
Fala!
With everyone's encouragement, Mestre walks back to the microphone. This time, the confusion in his eyes fades, replaced by a firm light. He then generously admits that he is indeed crazy. But isn't this world, which inverts black and white and puts profit above all else, also just a giant asylum? This sentence strikes like a thunderclap, waking up everyone present. And what Mestre recounts next uncovers a dusty past. It turns out Mestre's real name is Melon. He was the super billionaire ranked third in the world. At that time, he believed only in profit supremacy. To raise the company's stock by just 1 percentage point, he did not hesitate to adopt a subordinate suggestion, deciding to suspend production and lay off staff on a large scale. This meant 1,500 families would lose their source of income and fall into difficulty. When Melon's friend from his startup days came to advise him, he mercilessly kicked his friend out of the company. However, Melon soon tasted the evil fruit he had planted. He discovered that the subordinate he had entrusted with heavy responsibilities was secretly embezzling huge amounts of company funds to line his own pockets. In anger, Melon immediately had his secretary contact a lawyer, vowing to bring the other party to justice. That day happened to be his daughter's graduation ceremony. Melon, busy with work year-round, had already missed countless moments of his daughter's growth, making her very sad. His wife was also thoroughly disappointed in him, so Melon decided to use a trip to make up for the lack of companionship. The private jet was right in front of them, but just then, his phone rang. Under his daughter's expectant gaze, he ultimately answered the call.
Papai, eu e a mamãe preferimos te esperar.
Não, de jeito nenhum.
Mas pai...
Vocês seguem agora.
After speaking, Melon turned and walked away, leaving behind his disappointed wife and daughter. He might have thought then that there would be countless next times to make it up to them, but he never imagined this would be the most regretful decision of his life. The bomb, intended to kill him, ultimately took the lives of the two most important people in his life. When Melon rushed madly toward the burning wreckage of the plane, he only found his daughter's toy. At this moment, he understood that the most priceless thing in the world is family, and the most precious thing is the company of family. Those words of "next time for sure" became the pain of his life. From then on, Melon's life completely collapsed. Later, he was not only calculated against by his subordinate and locked into a mental hospital, but even his secretary was not spared. When he regained his freedom, everything he once had was gone. Since then, the world lost a fame-chasing billionaire but gained a man wandering the streets selling dreams. He uses his personal experience to warn the world. Do not easily betray your dreams, and do not ignore those happy moments in life for the sake of so-called success. As soon as his voice falls, thunderous applause erupts from the audience. Mestre uses his own tragic experience to inject a sobering shot of adrenaline into this materialistic and increasingly impetuous society, making everyone present re-examine their own lives, especially Julio, who deeply realizes his mistake. So after walking out of the venue, he can't wait to find his son and personally say the apology that is long overdue. But plans can never keep up with changes. A breaking news report on TV strikes Julio like lightning. He immediately rushes to the reported location. It's the same building, the same floor. He sees his son standing on the outside of the tower, over 300 feet in the air, reenacting his tragedy from yesterday. After rushing to the 21st floor, Julio skillfully steps over the window ledge. At this time, half of João's foot is already hanging in the air. The moment he sees his father, João's emotions become even more broken. It turns out that as Brazil's top psychologist, Julio pursued extreme perfection in everything, especially in his son's education. He always felt his son wasn't doing well enough and thus became increasingly critical. Over time, João's nerves became tighter and more broken, finally leading to this desperate step today. Julio hurriedly apologizes repeatedly and reaches out a hand to try and salvage everything. But João has already been crushed by years of denial. He chokes up, stating that since birth, he has been a burden to his father, a flawed and unqualified product. Since no matter how hard he tries, he cannot satisfy his father, he might as well disappear. Seeing his son spread his arms prepared to jump, Julio does something even crazier.
Eu me jogo primeiro. O que você disse? Que eu me jogo primeiro. Eu não vou saber viver sem você.
With that, Julio's toes inch forward little by little. João freezes in shock. He never imagined that he meant so much to his father. About to plummet into the abyss. The father and son hug tightly 100 meters in the air. Their suppressed emotions of many years finally erupt at this moment. Actually, death is never the end of pain, but the beginning of regret. It cannot take away the knots in your heart, nor can it take away what you owe others. And it certainly cannot take away the eternal void in the hearts of those who love you. Like Mestre said at the funeral, the true departure of the deceased is when the living no longer remember his face, his stories, or the warmth he brought. Conversely, as long as those marks remain, as long as we still speak of him, still miss him, and still practice the kindness and bravery he taught us, he lives forever in our lives, never having walked far away. And those who choose to escape through death are merely transferring their pain into a lifelong shackle for their loved ones. Moreover, once life fades, it means losing all possibility of starting over forever. Life is full of unknowns. There will always be unexpected bumps, sudden collapses, and unbearable weights. But please remember, life never has a dead end that you absolutely must walk. There is only the stubbornness of not wanting to turn. There is no pain that cannot be ended, only obsessions you refuse to put down. So, when you truly feel life is difficult and your world is crumbling, you might as well draw a comma in your life, think it over, then continue moving forward.